Welcome to this week's Eccentric Minute, brought to you by Eccentric. Our first exercise here in the Eccentric Minute is the K-box squat. This is the granddaddy of all of them, guys. One that we use at all levels of our training with a vast array of athletes. Couple big tips. I like to use something for our hands to support it. Make sure that strap is completely taut at the top. Don't leave it short, don't leave it long. What I really like the most about it, guys, the isoinertial wheel, we're going to use this with other squats as well. The other squats are working to depth. These, we're going to get to an athletic position and work our way up. Push hard and make sure you're fighting to hit that braking force. As we cut reps, we usually cut depth as well to make it a little bit more transferable to what we do. This is an awesome exercise that I can't recommend enough. Throw it in your training. It's going to be great for you and your athlete. I really hope you enjoyed this week's Eccentric Minute. Make sure you check them out at eccentric.com to find out everything you need about the K-box and the K-pulley. Being a strength and conditioning professional requires constant pursuit of better knowledge, better methods, and better means. But what if there was a place where strength and conditioning coaches could learn from some of the most innovative practitioners in the world, such as Jeff Moyer, Lachlan Wilmot, William Wayland, James the Thinker Smith, and Keir Wenham Flatt? Well, you could find multiple lectures from each of these top-level coaches and a few lectures and examples from yours truly as well, all in the Strength Coach Network. The Strength Coach Network is going to bring you well over 100 different lectures from some of the top practitioners in the world to be your one-stop shop for your continuing education and professional development. So hop on over to strengthcoachnetwork.com/CVASP today and get your 48-hour trial for only $1. That's strengthcoachnetwork.com/CVASPS to get your 48-hour trial for only $1. I look forward to seeing you in the Strength Coach Network. Fired up to catch up with my guy.
Hey.
Look at him, man. How you doing,
up,
buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, man. I'm great. The guy gets to the league. The beard's gone. Looking all professional. Look at this guy.
Just trying to keep it trimmed up, that's all. Trying to keep it clean.
How are things, man?
Things are weird, but
no doubt, right?
I mean, pretty good, I think. Like, personally, I think as good as can be, Still getting paid and family's healthy, so
That's all that matters, dude.
Right?
Can
you hear me okay? The neighbors were just mowing the lawn. I was afraid it'd be really loud, but
no, dude, I hear you great, man.
All right, cool.
I mean, not as great as those dangles you were showing off the other day when you took the rollerblades back out.
I'll tell you what, I have not. I used to play a lot of roller hockey as a kid. Yeah. Haven't put blades on in probably a decade. And then my son, I got them for my son and daughter and stuff. And I was like, you know what? I want to skate. I Amazon some skates and got out. I was like, dude, I love this. This is awesome.
Guy's sitting there dangles like he's a winger here. Dad was a goalie.
Super slow motion.
It didn't look it. I was like, yo, guy's been on the rink a little bit this time out there in the league.
Yeah. So how are you doing, man?
I'm glad to hear.
Yeah, family's good. Kids are good. My son is in kindergarten. So obviously, they closed up and they're doing the home learning thing as much as they kind of can or whatever. And my daughter's 4, so she's been home anyways with my wife. And it's a weird deal, right? Because there's been this huge blessing of family time, quality time. That's been at least for me, a silver lining out of this craziness. But then it's weird because there's obviously chaos and anxiety and uncertainty. So it's just a weird time. You know what I mean?
I don't think there's a better way to say it.
Yeah.
But listen, dude, what was it like? What was that transition like?
From college to pros or just the shutdown of everything?
No, college to the pros. Let's talk about something
Let's go there. We'll start with that. It was good, dude. It was super hectic. This first year was very I felt around the time we kind of got shut down, I was finally starting to get my feet under me and really kind of getting a role and feel real comfortable. But the whole transition was good overall. I mean, um, the position was is different than a little bit different than what I had been doing for the last decade. Um, it's new for the organization as well. Like it was a new position that they kind of created. So there's just a lot of me figuring out what that was like, them kind of figuring out what the job was actually supposed to be and what they wanted um, and all that. But the group that I work with is unbelievable. Like we have a blast every day at work and we have fun and really, really smart cats. The team is awesome, like good people all around, good guys to work with. The setting is different. The schedule is insane. Um, but then like on the flip side, there's some things about it, like from a scheduling standpoint, like I don't travel that much. I mostly stay back when the team is on the road because a big piece of my job is to work with injured players. So you kind of always have somebody that's got a broken finger or something like that. So I end up in some ways like spending more time at home than I did in the college setting. So it's been really interesting that way.
That's pretty cool, though, man. That's good for you. You also got to play around a little bit, man. Like, that picture I put with you on the 1080.
Yeah.
Like, like what were some things that you were, pun intended, what are some things you were dangling with, during that time? Because you're not a dude that can just sit there and be like, oh, I don't want to play with these toys.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, I mean, it's been, obviously it's been pretty cool. Like we have some pretty cool toys. We have a 1080 Quantum, we have a 1080 Sprint, we have force plates. So we're really fortunate that way. And obviously that's another big piece of my job is the, performance director piece of it is performance science director is to really sink my teeth into that stuff. And that was kind of one of the reasons why I think I was a good fit for them with the position. The way they created it is they really wanted somebody who had experience um, using sports science tools and technology in training, like not on sort of the research side of things in the lab based setting, but really like a coach that has been able to use a lot of the technology and implement it in an intelligent way that we can use it all the time. So like using the Quantum a bunch. First off, like outside of kind of knowing about the 1080 equipment, I had never really used any of it. So getting my feet wet and learning what like the isokinetic stuff was all about and how to implement that and being creative with that has been a really fun process. But it's also really taking us in a kind of an interesting direction just based on a lot of the logistical and time constraints in the NHL. Like there's no time for training. Like we play almost every other day. So there's 82 games in the NHL in roughly 180 days. It's almost every other day. So the time to get training in is super minimal. So you have to really, really, really pick your spots and pick your battles and figure out what's really important. And the Quantum stuff has been cool because we've been able to take um, if anybody's familiar with Matt Price and what he's done in LA with the LA Kings, like he's really sort of pushed the envelope here. But I feel like we've kind of taken some of his ideas and concepts and really been able to apply like really high force, low load stimulus to our players in season using the Quantum that just not able to do with like traditional lifting. So we're still doing traditional stuff. We do split squats and chin ups and landmine presses and whatever, but like we've implemented this 1080 stuff a lot into our, I guess, semi sport specific patterns. So we're doing like lateral pushing at really low velocities, letting our guys get really, really, really high force outputs. And so playing with that stuff has been fun. Like it's a whole new area that I've never gotten to experience. And it's been a lot of fun.
What are you seeing with it?
I'm seeing, first off, there's a bit of a learning curve. Like if you've never used that type of resistance or that type of tool, it's a little weird feeling. The athletes don't like right off the bat sort of understand. Like basically for those that aren't familiar, like isokinetic training allows you, the coach can set the speed at which something can move, and then the athlete can apply as much or as little force as they want to, and they're governed by that speed. So if you set the speed really low, the athlete can basically push against that resistance or that wall, um, as hard as they want or as lightly as they want. So from like a return to play injury perspective, it's awesome because you can start to apply, tension to the tissue at whatever velocities really, really safely because the athlete governs the whole thing. On the performance side, once the athletes are comfortable and kind of understand the feel, the force output that they're able to generate with this kind of isokinetic setting has been really cool. Like, and we're doing this again, like this lateral pushing, which is really specific to skating that we're not able to get a lot of other ways. And once the athletes get used to it, they love it. Like it's full buy-in with most of our guys because they're like, dude, this is skating, but I'm able to like get strong doing this. It's not a bar on my back and I'm going up and down, which like, yeah, it makes sense. And I get it because I'm an athlete, but like, it's not skating. This is almost like skating, but we can do like 1 RM type force outputs on it, which has been cool. We're not quite at the point of like we were trying to get to the point, and we will eventually have really been able to correlate that stuff with on ice sprinting with our 1080 sprint. That's kind of in the works, but we don't have enough data yet there. But that's where we're kind of going, is looking at, okay, if we work at the real force end of the spectrum in a more specific pattern with these guys, how does that show up on the ice in actual skating speed?
But the guys dig it.
They dig it. Like, we got one guy that makes a fair amount of money who is like looking into buying one for his house. And these are not like $300 pieces of equipment. You know what I mean? Like, this is an investment, and the guy likes it so much, and he's an older vet, and he's been around and he knows what he's doing. And he is like, dude, this is, I need to get this. This is incredible. And it's been really interesting that way.
That's pretty rad, dude. So what do you then, because like when we talk about dynamic correspondence, right, we're going to talk about angle, muscle, contraction, and speed. Are you ticking enough of those boxes that you think you're going to see it carry over, or are you thinking this is just going to be a strong assistance exercise that just helps them build off it?
I think it's a good question. I think it's just one piece of the puzzle, as is everything. So as much as I've liked it and the rabbit hole we're kind of going down, it's still just one piece. But a broader picture, a broader conversation really is the direction that we're kind of taking our programming and our whole approach. And a lot of people have been talking about this the last couple of years, but really to like more of a speed, sprint, horizontal power based approach to training. Hockey's it's a speed power sport. Guys skate 30 miles an hour, and getting them faster or keeping them really fast is really the biggest KPI in our perspective. So a lot of the other stuff that we're doing, I think, ticks those boxes in that direction, and this is ticking. I think this is ticking the box of that force end of the continuum, but in a more specific way than we've done in the past. If that makes sense.
No, 100%, dude. And I was kind of hoping you were going to say that, because that's where I was thinking it would fit. Is if the force velocity, that's going to be up here, and they're skating 30 miles an hour all the time. They're doing this. So how can we move that curve up and over more? You move that point higher so that this can all go out even further, right? In theory.
In theory. And that's what we've operated on, forever, right? Like that's what strength training is. That's what absolute strength is. And so I think the idea here in my mind is not that we're going in a different direction from the need of those qualities. It's just how are we applying those qualities? And one of the everything's logistics, right? So for us, when can we train? We probably average 1.5 training sessions a week over the course of the year, if you kind of average it all out based on our schedule, based on travel, based on all that. A fair amount of those are post game because in our setting, in our schedule with what we've got, et cetera, like that's when we can get it in. We do another session pre-practice. We try to get once a week. So we're only getting a couple of very, very brief touches. And again, we're working on shifting some ways that we do that, but it kind of comes down to this microdosing approach. And if all these other boxes are checked and we think that we need to apply really high force, and that's the box that needs to get checked, how can we do that? How can we do that quickly, safely, with little to no eccentric stress and soreness and all of that stuff? How do we do that? And this tool and the isokinetic stuff that we're doing with it seems to be a way that we can get that is not, it's not threatening to the athletes. They seem to respond really well to it. Yeah, it's just it has fit really well, and it's been really interesting to see along the way.
I love that, dude. That's rad. And then, somebody asked a question up here a little bit ago, like, do you worry about that lateral? Let me see if I can find it. Do you feel that lateral push in the weight room overtrains skating like movement pattern? I think I know your answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, no, because we're doing it. But again, like because we're doing it at super low volumes, like we're literally getting, so the way we end up having to do it, we have some Kaiser equipment in there too. And in our one lift a week that's pre-practice, part of the A series or B series or whatever you want to call it is basically 2 sets of this lateral push using the Kaiser machine, and then 1 to 2 sets on the 1080. So they're literally getting 3, 6, 9, maybe 12 reps a week, and half of that is on the 1080 at at these high forces. So the volume is like extraordinarily low, because it's all that we have time to get in. So I don't worry about that. I don't think there's any concern of overtraining the tissue from that standpoint. Certainly if we were doing 4 sets of 10, et cetera, with a bunch of other stuff, like, yes, but we're getting a couple of reps. But that's what's been really neat about it, is that we're seeing big increases in force output over the season with only a couple reps a week, because the intention that the athlete can put into it, the level of force that they can put into it, is so much higher than we've ever been able to train sort of in that pattern, that it doesn't take much to see a lot of improvement.
Nah, dude, I love that. And I think that, I think there's a lot to it to why it wouldn't. It's at a completely different aspect of that strength velocity or the force velocity curve. It's not the same angle, because if you just went and pushed straight to the left or straight to the right on the ice, you wouldn't go anywhere.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And if it is that low volume and you're able 6 to 8 reps a week. Now, when you do it with the Kaiser, is that like hip loaded? And is that like explosive? Or is that like, how do you do that?
Yeah. So we have a bunch of the what's that strap deals. So we hook those up, and we usually go over the lead shoulder. So if the Kaiser or the 1080 is over here, I have that strap on this shoulder, and I'm almost throwing like a body check in this direction. When we do it on the Kaiser, it's not explosive. It's not like bounding. Their feet aren't leaving the ground, but it's at a higher speed and lower load than what would happen on the 1080, if that makes sense. So it's kind of a lateral, it's like a lateral push the first two sets on the Kaiser are essentially a warm up for like the max effort set on the 1080 as a third or fourth set.
Yeah, no, makes complete sense. I dig that. So then, where do you see like that stuff with the 1080 going then? Like, is this something that you think, like, I mean, obviously this isn't a toy that everybody can get access
Yeah.
to, but selfishly, I'm building a facility, so I want to know, like, when you look at like change of direction with athletes, do you think that working at that high of a force level in and really just the concentric force level. Like there isn't that eccentric and that loading and that stopping that comes into cutting. Do you feel like that could have good carryover, like if you were back at Lowell with your hockey girls, the field hockey team?
Yeah. I mean, one, like you can do other stuff with it, like the isokinetic settings and the really low speed, high force stuff is just kind of one area that I'm using the equipment for. Like you can overload eccentric stuff. You can do a lot more dynamic, explosive stuff out of it. So you could certainly use it in different ways. I do think I think it's more applicable the higher the training age. Just because I think my thought process is always general to specific, right? For the most part, my field hockey or soccer girls at Lowell, um, like we're at a low enough training age where I don't know that they would need. I think there would be benefit to using the tool in certain ways, but more so than our general training and stuff. Maybe not. Maybe a couple little things here or there, but the higher the athlete's training age, my juniors and seniors on my college hockey team at Lowell, the ice hockey guys, like they for sure we could have used it to find some additional improvement or direction because those guys had a really high training age. These guys at this level, the one thing I've learned and really come to appreciate working with these guys is the level of like the level of tuned in they are to their system, like subconsciously, is extraordinary. Like these guys, for the most part, uh, they are so aware of their body. Um, it's incredible. So finding little areas that again, like the 1080 allows us to kind of dive into and do some unique stuff. I think works really well at this level with these types of athletes that are, and we're talking about there's 700 players in the NHL. So the top 700 human beings that play the sport of ice hockey. They're incredible athletes. Like they're so dialed into themselves on a subconscious level that it really provides some unique opportunities to do some unique things with them. Where, and again, a lot of their training ages are pretty high at this point. So they've squatted, they've deadlift, they've done the basic stuff. And again, we're still doing that stuff. It's still important, but it's allowed us to find those little 1% areas.
No doubt. So what have you learned from them then?
To listen to them, like they know, especially the guys. There's some guys that I'm really fortunate to get to work with here that are super intelligent dudes anyway, and understand training and have been around good training for a long time. And I've learned a ton from them again about really that like even more specific thought processes around training a hockey player than I've ever thought of. And I've played the game for, I mean, 30 years at this point, right? And one of our defensemen, he loves to train and he's got a great background. He's really smart, and we talk all the time about um, different applications, uh, different schools of thought. How we had a discussion one time about um, how to properly lace up your skates and the cost uh, benefit ratio between um, leaving one or two eyelets undone and improving dorsiflexion, but that as a defenseman, increased stiffness might actually be better because the reverse skating, it was crazy. I was like, holy shit. Like, yeah, okay, I see that this is, so what I've learned from them is to listen to them because they're really smart. Again, I think they're, one thing I think with really elite level athletes, like I think of them as geniuses at what they do, right? It's that Einstein quote of like, everybody's a genius, but if you ask a fish to climb a tree or whatever, like it looks stupid. These guys are geniuses at the ability to play hockey. And if they can verbalize that, then like the wisdom that comes out of them is incredible.
That's pretty cool, man. And that whole idea of the skates, like, it's funny, like that, the whole, what was it when Marco was with Team GB and it was just like find the 1%,
Yep.
like that's wild. Because that dorsiflex is important, right? But you've got to be way more stable because you're just putting guys into the boards and mucking in the corners and in front the whole time.
Well, and he would tell me like, he was like, yeah, like I'm faster going forward if I undo that top hole. But he's a relatively smaller, undersized defenseman. And he's like, if I undo the top hole, I sit lower, which is part of what makes me go faster. But if I sit lower defensively, I can't see the play as well. So I actually want it stiffer and tied higher so that I sit taller because then I can see the play better. Like it was like holy shit. Like I've never even thought about that. Like it was crazy. And so stuff like that, guys, it's pretty impressive the stuff that that they think about and how they view training and where it fits and why and all of that stuff. So those things have been really fun.
What about like in training or rehab? Do you have a situation like that?
As far as like discussions and things
Somebody
like that.
saying something to you and you just being like, whoa.
Well, yeah, I mean that like same guy, like on the 1080, he like came up with an exercise basically that was, we were doing like some anti-rotation type stuff, and I was playing with it on there and kind of some semi chop slash Paloff pressy kind of motions. And he was like, like I'm in front of the net and I'm, defensive posture. I got a guy, the puck's over here, so I'm looking over here, but Ovi is coming from this side, and so I got to like box him out this way. And like, could we come up with an exercise where I'm like, and he starts playing with it, I start playing with it, and we get him into these positions, and then you can set the machine a certain way to give this like eccentric overload. And so what ends up happening is he's in this like anti-rotational position, and we've got a chop bar on the machine, and it's giving him and releasing tension like he's battling a guy in front of the net. And it was like completely out of his playbook, and he's like, this is what happens on the ice, I got to be able to be over here. And so like literally working with the guy during return to play, he was banged up at the time, he's coming up with exercises that now are like things that we're doing with guys that just make perfect sense, again, from a transfer standpoint, where I think maintaining our principles in training, but able to sprinkle in some of these things, which again, you've only got so much time and you're trying to find 1%. It's been cool.
How open were they to your principles, and how much impact did they have on any flexibility or changes to them?
Guys have been really open. I'm fortunate in that our group here, so the other strength coach on staff that has been here for I think this was his 5th year here. We both actually we both interned together for Boyle 12 years ago or whatever it was. So we literally knew each other from back then. We started together, and he went into pro hockey and I went into college sports, and we came back around. So from a principle standpoint, this is what the veterans here at least have been basically doing, more or less. We have the same kind of thought process. I think the addition of some of the again, I don't like the term necessarily, but the sport specific stuff that I've implemented and the usage of the technology to give them feedback about what's going on, I think they've really appreciated, because again, it's like all of a sudden it makes sense. Like, yeah, all right, I'm an athlete, I get it. Like squatting, leg strength, etc. This is good. Oh, like lateral pushing legs. This is like hockey. This is like skating. This makes a ton of sense. And so when things make sense to guys at that level, I think it creates buy-in. And so it's guys have been very, very open to what we've done.
Is there anything that you thought you were going to be able to bring with you from Lowell that just hasn't worked? Or you had to get rid of?
I don't know. I probably didn't realize how pared down things would need to be here, just from the standpoint of like what, on a practical level, like what could we really get done on any given day? Just again, just because of the schedule, just because of the timing of it. Um, I think I've had to really, really, really think deeply about what is absolutely necessary. Like, what do we absolutely have to get done? Because it might be two things. Maybe we can get two things in. Um, and so, what are the two things that are going to have the biggest bang for the buck, that are going to matter, that we're going to be able to scale to the individual or to the scenario? Like, so those things have been. I don't know if I didn't know that coming here, but probably even re-emphasize the importance of that.
How would you make those decisions?
Oof. Well, on a global perspective, a big picture, um, we start with our KPIs and we try to think about and understand, okay, what's globally for a hockey player, what's really important. And then we try to scale that stuff down as much as we can to the individual to come up with, an individual prescription or plan around guys. And not that those things are differing substantially across the board, but yeah, start big picture and understand, okay, what matters for the sport, what matters for our group, in our team, the way we want to play, the personnel that we have, and then start to parse it down. One, just common sense wise, looking at players, talking with them, understanding who they are, where they're coming from, but then also looking at our data and using our force velocity profiling that we did from sprint testing in camp, and some of our testing stuff, and our ongoing, our force plates and our 1080 quantum stuff, where we're collecting the data and starting to paint a picture biomechanically and bioenergetically of who these guys are, so that we can be more individual. And that's a totally ongoing process. Like that's in the works every day, and we're trying to refine it and get better and define what we're even trying to come up with. But that's kind of the process that we're going through.
That's pretty awesome, man. It sounds like it would be a lot of fun.
It is, and it's just a great group. Like, I saw J Rod is hopped on here. Thankfully, he took off and took the head job with the Rangers, so I could slide in here last summer and get to hang out. But the group here is awesome. Like Joe, our head guy, is fantastic, and again, we go way back. Our VP of player care, who's kind of our high performance manager, Chris Stackpole, is super bright and really good dude, and is such a great middle. He's a PT by trade, so he's such a great middle ground between medical and performance. Our medical guys are great and are super smart. So I'm fortunate to have gotten into a position where we have just a really good team that's all interested in kind of pulling in the same direction.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least ask a little bit of what you're doing with the guys now, if you can talk about it. And obviously this kind of came at all of us like a curveball at Pedro Serrano. Like, nobody knows if we were going to be able to hit it or not. But what are some things that you've taken and remodeled and helped and reached out and
Yeah,
got?
I mean, the way that we're operating at this point, very much in limbo. We don't know. Whatever anybody else has heard in the media is basically what we know. We're kind of hoping that some stuff happens, but nobody really knows. So we're trying to help guys stay, as prepared as they can. But like, it's really hard. It's obviously remote training. Everybody was allowed to and did kind of go home. So our guys are, everywhere from here in Jersey, the few guys that live here, to California, to Switzerland, to all over the place. So we're doing, remote training via, Team Builder. And we have, at this point, we've written up programs and told guys from an equipment standpoint, these are the bare essentials that you need, and we'll help you get what you need so that you can do this. And we're kind of in a phase 1 off season type of training program right now, where it's just guys are at home and kettlebell and TRX and a weight vest and doing some escalating density type stuff. And it's just weird because we're trying to, obviously equipment wise, a lot of guys are really limited. A few guys have great home gyms, but younger guys are in an apartment wherever they're at. And so we're like in this phase 1 off season, but it's also like a little bit trying to keep them somewhat prepared to play, because we might come back and play. Like, there's been a fair amount of discussion about that, and they're still trying to figure it out. So it's a weird spot, obviously, for everybody, but that's kind of where it's just touching base
I
with
think that,
everybody and trying to make sure that you got me.
yep, you're right there, man.
Okay. Yeah, just touching base with everybody a couple times a week and trying to help them get what they need, do what they need to do. But that's what we can do. So that's it.
Yeah. No, I think that's one thing that you're hearing more and more from people is it's like, well, we kind of have a plan, but we don't. And then we put out kind of a basic plan, and now from here on out, it's basically we provide a plan for everybody based on what everybody has, or like what they have specifically.
Yeah.
But what I think is wild for you guys, bro, is like if I was in the NBA and we were to come back and play, like at least the guys could run, right? Like you could at least go outside, even if you're in a city, like you go outside and run. You can't just strap your boots on and go out there on the pavement and hit some Russian circles or something. Like you're not going to be able to skate, like period.
Yeah.
And they're talking like y'all might just jump into the playoffs.
Yeah, that is crazy, and that's what they've talked about. Like, if they are able to come back, then there might be some short training camp amount of time to try to get guys back in a safe manner and things like that. We've talked about trying to get guys rollerblades. It's not the same, but at least kind of, sort of. But that's the thing. Everybody's like, what the hell do we do? Like, how do we navigate this? So it's crazy.
Yeah, you get them rollerblades and a slide board, and you figure, gosh, maybe if that's not quite right either way, if they do both, it somehow it translates in the middle. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. Well, if you get them rollerblades and they come over and play with you guys, soft tissue groins at a high risk. Yeah. They get them rollerblades. They can play with you guys. You can show them how the real dangles go.
Yeah, that's right. I'll show the boys. Here's how we do it.
But nah, man, I'm glad you're doing good, and it's great to catch up, brother. I appreciate your time today, man. It sucks that it got cut short for all of us, but I couldn't be happier for you, dude. Like, keep kicking ass up there.
I appreciate it, man. That's good. It's it's kind of a bummer how things ended or at least paused, but it's been a fun first one, and hopefully I'll stick around for a while. So.
Yeah, brother. Well, rooting for you hard here, man. Appreciate your time, Dev. Great to see you. It's so fired up for you, man. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. Good to see you too.
Hey, and you know what? I heard it's National Craft Beer Day, man. So
is that right?
Happy National Craft Beer Day to you,
maybe I'll have one.
Hey, brother. As always, appreciate you, man. Cheers.
All right, buddy. We'll see you.
Yeah, man. Later.